Hi ladies, welcome to session 5, lesson 6. I hope that this lesson finds you all doing well, and I hope that you're growing in the Lord as we're doing these studies. So I just want to go ahead and get started. We have recently discussed an extremely difficult time in the life of Jacob. Today we are going to focus on the plight of his favored son, Joseph. This study may again touch the chords of your heart as you consider your own dreams and ambitions, which may or may not have reached fulfillment by this point in time. Genesis 37:12 through 36 reads, "His brothers had gone to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, 'Your brothers, you know, are pasturing the flocks at Shechem. Get ready. I'm sending you to them.' 'I'm ready,' Joseph replied. Then Israel said to him, 'Go and see how your brothers in the flocks are doing, and bring word back to me.' So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. A man found him there wandering in the field and asked him, 'What are you looking for?' 'I'm looking for my brothers,' Joseph said. 'Can you tell me where they are pasturing their flocks?' 'They've moved on from here,' the man said. 'I heard them say, let's go to Dothan.' So Joseph set out after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him in the distance, and before he had reached them, they plotted to kill him. They said to one another, 'Here comes that dreamer. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits. We can say that a vicious animal ate him, and then we'll see what becomes of his dreams.' When Reuben heard this, he tried to save him from them. He said, 'Let's not take his life.' Reuben also said to them, 'Don't shed blood. Throw him into this pit in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him,' intending to rescue him from their hands and return him to his father. When Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped off his robe, the robe of many colors that he had on. Then they took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat a meal. They looked up, and there was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were carrying aromatic gum, balsam, and resin going down to Egypt. And then Judah said to his brothers, 'What do we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh.' And they agreed. When the Midianite traders passed by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, 'The boy is gone. What am I going to do?' So they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a young goat, and dipped the robe in its blood. They sent the robe of many colors to their father and said, 'We found this. Examine it. Is it your son's robe or not?' His father recognized it. 'It is my son's robe,' he said. 'A vicious animal has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces.' Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth around his waist, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. 'No,' he said, 'I will go down to Sheol to my son mourning.' And his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard. Let's explore Joseph's brothers' ever-increasing animosity of him. First, in Genesis 37, verse 2, we see that Joseph was tending sheep with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, and that he brought back a bad report about them to their father. Seeing him approach might have made them immediately defensive as to what he would go back and tell their father. In case you are curious, the brothers that were part of the bad report were Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Secondly, his father gave him the coat of many colors. I am sure that they were all already aware that Joseph was Jacob's favorite son, but the appearance of the coat would have definitely driven that truth home all the more. Verse 4 says that this coat was a sign that he was loved more than the others and that they hated him and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. A commentary by Bill Pratt states that the robe was an indication that Joseph was to be given the double inheritance and receive the rights of the firstborn, even though he was not actually Jacob's firstborn. Reuben was. However, Joseph was the firstborn of Jacob's beloved Rachel. Thirdly, there are two dreams that Joseph had, the first of which had the sheaves of his brother bowing down to his own sheaf. Verse 8 states that they hated him even more for insinuating that he would one day rule over them. The second dream consisted of the sun, moon, and 11 stars all bowing down to him. Jacob even rebuked him at this, asking if his father and mother were also going to bow down to him. His brothers burned with jealousy of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Bill Pratt's commentary goes on to say that the dreams indicated that Israel's choice of Joseph receiving the rights of the firstborn was confirmed by God. He credits Alan P. Ross as having said, God's sovereign choice of a leader often brings out the jealousy of those who must submit. Rather than recognizing God's choice, his brothers set out on a course to destroy him. Their actions, though prompted by the belief that they should lead, show why they should not have led. I find it very interesting that as the brothers were plotting to kill Joseph, it is Reuben who steps in and convinces them to throw him in a cistern instead, fully intent on returning and saving him. If you will remember from Lesson 3, Reuben was the true firstborn of Israel. However, he also dishonored his father by sleeping with his concubine, Bilhah. He had therefore forfeited the double inheritance and rights of the firstborn by his actions. Had Reuben matured since then and become more respectable and moral, or was he somehow trying to atone for his actions by saving Joseph? Could his heart not withstand further disappointment from his father? Unfortunately, Reuben disappears for a while. We aren't told why he leaves. In his absence, Judah convinces the brothers to sell Joseph rather than having the guilt of his blood on their hands. Therefore, Joseph is sold to Ishmaelite traders who are passing through. Obviously, the Ishmaelites would have been the descendants of Abraham's other son, Ishmael, who was not part of the covenant promise from God. When Reuben returns, he sees that Joseph is gone and tears his clothes in sorrow. The brothers agree to dip Joseph's robe in goat's blood and take it back to their father, allowing him to believe that Joseph was killed by a wild animal. Jacob mourned for Joseph many days and refused to be comforted. Meanwhile, Joseph had been sold in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard. Ross concludes his commentary with the following. This is a story of hatred and deception. The brothers tried to improve their lot with their father by wicked means. Jacob himself had attempted something similar with his father. The brothers would have to learn, however, as Jacob did, that God does not continue to give his blessing to those who do such things. Their use of goat's blood is ironic, for the skins of a goat were used by Jacob to deceive his father. Jacob's sin of years before had come back to haunt him. The brothers' attitude would also have to be changed by God, or there would be no nation. Here, then, is the beginning of the suffering of Joseph, the obedient servant. God would test his character through the things he suffered so that he could then be exalted. Do you ever wonder what must have been running through Joseph's mind? We can clearly see through countless biblical stories that God used dreams and visions to communicate with his people. This would have been something that Joseph's family would have known. So Joseph was all set up for success. He was Jacob's favorite, and God had revealed to him twice that he would one day rule over his family. He must have walked around with a spring in his step and joy in his heart. However, one day his entire world came crashing down around him, and he was thrown into a cistern by his brothers, and then sold to Ishmaelite traders and taken to Egypt, where he became the slave of Potiphar. As we are familiar with Joseph's story, we also know that this wasn't the end of his mistreatment. He would actually go on to be falsely accused of a crime and then imprisoned. So the story brings me back to us. Do you have a promise or a vision that God has given you, but nothing has come of it? Have you actually moved backwards instead of forward in pursuit of that dream? Do you struggle with doubt that you ever heard from God in the first place? Later on in Joseph's story, after his family does indeed bow down to him, he reveals that God took what they intended for evil and turned it around for his good. I'm going to kind of go off track a little bit here and tell you guys that one of the dreams that I've had for myself is standing in front of people, giving my story, talking to people, women obviously, and I kind of pictured myself more in, I don't know, giving a testimony, doing a teaching, but lately I've been having, I don't know if it's a dream or a vision or what, but as you know from anyone that has attended the conference or even seeing us do these videos, I am very comfortable with writing and I read what I've written, and that's pretty much it. I'm not one of those dynamic people that can get out in front of a crowd and speak and have coherent thought and really be able to bring home a point. But I've been having this vision of myself standing in front of women. I don't really know if I'm teaching or I think maybe it's more of coming from encouragement to women who have been through situations like my own. But I'm not reading a script. I'm speaking to them from my heart. And what I think is really happening is I have like these bullet points, and I have something that I've written, and I memorize it and then kind of look at my bullet points to keep me going. But the thing with this vision that's different than before is I'm not, I don't even know how this works, but I'm not closing my eyes and seeing myself talk in front of people. I'm feeling myself do it. Like there's this woman who is standing very comfortably, very confidently, and really making sense. And that person is me. And I feel that it's me. Like I know that it's me, even though I don't see it. Like when I have this vision, I'm actually the one speaking. That kind of terrifies me. But I have taken on different roles at work. As I asked for prayer last week, I'm standing in front of, we do taxes for truck drivers, and I've been standing in front of the truck drivers, giving them the tax and LLC class, which lasts about an hour. I'm very confident in it because I completely know the information, something that we go over daily. But I'm finding that I'm really enjoying standing in front of them. I've also realized that when it is a larger crowd, I feel far more comfortable than if there are a few people. And I think it's because you kind of feed off of the energy of more people. So that's something that I've been doing. I'm still nervous before I do it, but as I do it, I have a blast typically when I do it. So I'm kind of, I guess, in that state where I don't know if this vision or whatever is something that I'm wishing for myself, or if it's something that God's given to me and that's what He wants me to become. That's what my purpose is. All right, so I'm going to get back to the study here. Sweet sister, please take heart that God has not forgotten about you. The lack of progress in your dreams doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't dreams that God has given to you. It could be that the obstacles you are facing are being thrown at you by Satan, who is trying to deter you from reaching your destiny. If this is the case, remember from Joseph's story that what Satan intends for evil, God will turn around for your good. The delay could also be due to the fact that God is preparing you for your new journey. He may also be working on the hearts of others that He needs the cooperation of. Still, another possibility is the fact that our vision is limited. God sees everything and may be waiting for certain events to fall into place before springing your dreams into action. So this was a very short study, and I want to go ahead and close in prayer. Lord God, please help us to completely trust you, your direction, and your timing, not relying on our own understanding of the circumstances that we face. Help us to not lose heart. Cover us in calm and peace. If we have heard correctly from you with the dreams that we have for ourselves, please reaffirm those dreams in our hearts. If we have not heard correctly from you, please give us clear direction as to which path you have for us to take. Above all, please help us to glorify you in all that we do. In Jesus' name.